Hello, and welcome to another virtual author event at the Poison Pen. I'm John Charles, and the Poison Pen is thrilled to have back with us virtually today New York Times bestselling author Kristen Ashley. Before we do begin, I do want to let all the millions of Kristen Ashley fans tuning in today that we will have signed copies of Kristen's latest book, Dream Chaser, available for ordering either by going online to the bookstore or by giving us a call, and we would be happy to send a copy or copies out to you. And what better way to celebrate the end of 2020 or start off 2021 than with a new Kristen Ashley book? So without further ado, let me go ahead and welcome Kristen. And my first question for you is, tell us about who Kristen Ashley was before you became an author. I know reading and writing were always important in your life, but you did explore some other career options. What were they like?
This is a great question. I don't think anybody's ever asked me this question. I was in charity for my entire career. So I started at the Rocky Mountain Multiple Sclerosis Center after I graduated from Purdue University, and then I stayed in charity admin until I quit my job to go full-time as a writer. So I worked at Colorado Neurological Institute. There's a book that I wrote called Laceybourne Manor, and the heroine works at a community center on a council estate in England, and that is very close to the Bourneville Community Center where I worked when I first moved to England. So I've always worked in charity until I worked for me.
Did you find in those early jobs that some of the skills you learned transferred into writing, or was it a completely different world?
Definitely transferred into writing, for sure. I mean, any kind of experience you have, you can call on. But because I am mostly independently published, I have to run my own business. And working in admin, I learned how to budget, look at budgets and P&L sheets and marketing and human resources and how important contracts are and how important it is to read the contracts and to at least have some understanding of what they're saying and that kind of thing.
That's true. Okay, tell us a little bit about your latest book, Dream Chaser, and its protagonists, Rin and Boone.
Well, Dream Chaser is the second in the Dream Team series, and this series was only going to be 4 books, but it looks like I might extend it to 7, 8, 9, who knows how many. I really love being in this world, and one of the reasons I love being in this world is that it's set in Denver, and it's a mashup of 2 of my really popular series, The Rock Chicks and The Dream Men. So I get to call on this huge cast of characters from earlier series and kind of touch base with them, after years and babies and, life under their belt. But Boone and Rin, the series is based on one character setting up all of her husband's best friends with her best friends, and the second setup is Boone and Rin, and they don't start very well. She's had some difficulties in her love life, and she doesn't trust very easily, and she knows he's a really good guy, so she doesn't want to get involved with somebody who's marvelous and then lose him. So she's protecting her heart a little bit, but he breaks through. As happens in romance novels.
Of course. Now, in the romance genre, the word series has a little bit different meaning than in other genres because it's a different protagonist, a couple in each book, but the world is the same. Can you talk a little bit about how you create these worlds, and what is the world of the Dream Team? How does that borrow from your other series? How is it different?
Well, it's set in real life Denver, but I mean, all the heroes in this series are commandos. They work for Hawk Delgado, who has kind of this nebulous business that has never been and probably never really will be described. He's a veteran, Special Forces veteran, and all of the characters so far are veterans, but there are some down the road that aren't. They have street experience or life experience where they they can do pretty much everything, and there's an overlying arc in this series, even though there are different hero and heroine throughout. With each book, there's a little bit of danger happening, and it's good that these guys are commandos when the girls get kidnapped or or somebody ends up dead on their back porch or whatever, so somebody can roll in and take care of business. So Hawk is from the boss of all of these guys. He's from the Dream Team series, and Lottie is she's sister. Her sister is the heroine of the second book in the Rock Chick series, Jet. And the Rock Chicks managed to get into a lot of trouble during their series, and there was a private investigation organization that looked after them. And so it all kind of intermingles with Hawk's guys and Lee from Rock Chick's guys, and then these new commandos. And it's they're a little younger than my normal. I usually write heroes and heroines in their 30s or 40s, and these folks are in their late 20s, early 30s. So it's a little younger for me. I'm in my 50s, so.
Well, you certainly don't.
So it seems very young to me, but.
As you create these worlds and these different series, and you've done a number of different series, how do you keep track of things? Or do you find you've written yourself into a corner in one book that you have to figure out? I mean, from a writing standpoint, when you're structuring a series, how do you go about that so it works best for you?
Well, for the most part, this is a world that exists. I could at any given time, if somebody said, "What's Daisy doing right now?" from the Rock Chick series, I could say, "She's taking a bubble bath and giving herself a facial." So it doesn't seem to me like it really ends, and that's one of the reasons why I do a lot of spin-offs, is because I don't want it to end. So it isn't really hard for me to carry on in these. If I'm doing so this is a contemporary romance. If I'm doing a fantasy romance, I have to structure it a little differently, because there is an end. You need to move on, or it's going to start to seem less. It's going to start to seem gimmicky, I think. I mean, in real life, you can do just about anything. All sorts of things happen. It's funny how, to me, I feel like a fantasy romance, or even a paranormal romance, is a little bit more constrained, because you always want there to feel real, even if it's fantasy. And I think that that's more limited. Whereas contemporary, there are a million roads you could travel.
You've been quoted as saying that you love writing imperfect characters. Can you elaborate on that for us? What does that mean to you?
Well, I grew up reading romance, and when I probably read my first romance when I was around 12. A Harlequin Presents novel with the white cover with the oval of the hero and heroine, and for the most part, if I remember correctly, this was a while ago. The heroes could be broken or brooding, but the heroines had to be perfect. They were beautiful. They had beautiful bodies. They were a certain age, and they always did and said everything right. And they were always sensitive, or the caregiver. And even though that's wonderful to consider that a woman can be like that, nobody can be like that. And so I like the idea of not only exploring that a hero, but the hero is always lovable, no matter what he does. I mean, he can murder somebody, and you can well, they deserved it. And so I like to explore that. I like to explore an imperfect hero and how they're still lovable, why they're still lovable. But I also I think that we don't love the people in our lives in spite of little flaws. I think everything that you are makes up who you are, and you love that person as a whole. And that's what I like to explore in my books, for both the hero and the heroine, and the ancillary characters. The secondary characters are very important to me. And nobody always says the right thing, nor do they always do the right thing. And how do you carry on from that?
Well, that kind of is a spin-off of something else that you've said about people, I guess, in general, is that a person is not just the summation of what they've done, it's also about the people who love them, who are in their lives. So
Yes.
can you talk a little bit about how that influenced your writing?
I think that everybody, that is the case for everybody, but my number one top favorite romance novelist is Judith McNaught. And when I discovered her work, well into the path of reading romance novels, I lived for her to put out another novel, because her books to me were perfection. And there were certain ingredients in all of her books that I have been happy to tell everybody that I've stolen. And one of them is that her secondary characters were fully fleshed out characters. You could see them taking off into their own book. You could really feel them. And I love that she did that. I love that she didn't give short shrift to important people in the hero or heroine's lives. And when you got to know them and how lovable they were, you realized just how lovable the hero and heroine were. And I thought that was, and whether that was by design, where it is with me, or whether that was just the way her stories came to her, I thought that was beautiful, that she built in her stories, you had a family, and it wasn't all blood. I remember most specifically Lucinda Throckmorton-Jones, who was, essentially a couple of her important in a couple of her heroines' lives. And she was funny, and she was standoffish, and she was proper, and she was utterly perfect. She was just this wonderful character that stood beside the heroine no matter what, and something had to make her feel that loyalty, and so I have a lot of Lucinda Throckmorton-Joneses in my books.
All of your books celebrate the power of love and the important place it has in our lives. Why do you think that even today the romance genre is so easily dismissed by some people? Is it because it's written by women?
Yeah. It's like this easiest answer. I have people. People even in my life that I have this conversation with, and they ask me, "Do you really think it's just because women write it?" And I absolutely do. I think that there's just a feeling in the society that things that women do or women value are less for whatever reason. When I've been reading this genre, like I said, it's been 40 years, and I've read some really tremendous books, in the genre, just well written books, and some of the most beautifully crafted books I've read are erotica, so it's that's my opinion. Yeah.
You mentioned that you both write for traditional publishers as well as yourself, so that's the hybrid publishing model. I guess for readers or people tuning in who might not know much about that, can you talk a little bit about hybrid publishing and why it works best for you as an author?
Well, I publish my own novels. I independently or self-publish novels, and that's the same exact procedure as happens with the traditional novel. So all the editing and copy editing and proofing and cover design and marketing and all that goes into my self-published books. And then I also publish with Grand Central Publishing, and I've which Dream Chaser is, and the Dream Team books are Grand Central's books. And then I've also published with St. Martin's, and I write the book, and they do the editing and the copy editing and the marketing for me. And I think that's I'm a control freak, and I have certain, and I'm very opinionated. And for instance, I'm not a big fan of the normal, kind of the normal stereotypical romance novel cover. It's very, very rare that you'll see people on the covers of my books. And I like to have that control. But nobody can ever do anything in a vacuum. And I would be foolish being a writer and not depending on or having a connection to New York publishing world and all of that experience. And they've been doing this for many, 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 many years, and the people I work with have been in romance for many, many years. So it's kind of like I have two different teams. I have the team that I build, and then I have my team in traditional publishing, and hopefully I don't want to be stagnant. I want to grow and write better stories, and I can't do that in my little cocoon. I have to have lots of different people from lots of different walks of life with lots of different skills helping me and teaching me and supporting me along the way. So, and I also publish with 1001 Dark Nights, which is a different model. And even, where they are a publisher and they do all the work for you, but it's kind of more of a publishing sisterhood where they depend on all the writers in their stable to help market all the books. So I work with, and there's a bevy of unbelievably untapped knowledge. I mean, just like tons and tons of it that help me to sell books, reach readers.
Two different things play important roles in your own life as well as your writing. The first is music. Can you talk a little bit about how music factors into your writing process? Can a song inspire a book or a character? Music.
Music is huge. I was just listening to the Carpenters' Christmas album, which is my favorite Christmas album. And Christmas doesn't really seem to start until I've listened to this album from beginning to end, because it reminds me of home when I was growing up with my big family. It's our soundtrack, and I can do anything from have an entire book jump off of hearing a song to sitting in my office writing a scene and sobbing buckets while I'm listening to music and having the song play a part in that scene. I don't ever write with any distractions, any noise at all, nothing, except if I'm writing a scene with a song in it. And then I'll play the song over and over again while I'm writing the scene. So it's massive for me. Yeah.
And the other thing is food. Can you talk a little bit about how important food is in your books, how you incorporate it? And
food's everywhere. I'm a big foodie. I love food. I just published a cookbook with Suzanne Johnson, Dream Bites, which is it's a charity cookbook. Half the proceeds of the cookbook go to the Rock Chick Nation charities, and it's in this series, the Dream Team series, where there's short stories that I've written about all the guys, and then some special guest stars in there, and then there's a lot of really, really good food, and I don't know, I just have a lot of memories that revolve around food, especially with things like my grandma from California. I lived in Indiana and I didn't get to see her very often, and when we would go to California, she would cook for us, and she was Polish and she could cook, and she had all of these really great recipes that even my mom had, and my parents were divorced, but my mom still made my grandma's recipes, and those recipes are in my books. So I have if there's a recipe that's in the book and I have the recipe, it's on my website. I have an entire list of recipes, pizzas and cookies and all sorts of things on my website.
You've mentioned the Rock Chicks and Rock Chick Nation. For those who might not be familiar, tell us about this group. How did it originate? What is a Rock Chick?
Well, I think every woman has a rock chick in her. I started writing in my 20s, and I started publishing in my 40s, mostly because nobody would publish me. I couldn't find an agent, I couldn't find a publisher. I have a very unique voice, and nobody was really interested in this new fangled way of telling a romance novel that I had. That's why I started independently publishing, and my books took off. I've sold over 4 million books, and I have over 70 titles published. And obviously, the reason why I can live my life writing romance novels is because my readers read them, and I can't personally go to all of their homes and shake their hand and thank them and make them a cocktail. So I was trying to figure out how to thank my readers, and one of the things I built the Rock Chick Nation, which is my flagship series, Rock Chick. And we do a variety of things within the Rock Chick Nation. And we have Rock Chick Rendezvous, which are these massive parties I put on over a weekend that have disco dancing and road rallies and coffee mornings and all sorts of fun stuff. I do Rock Chick Recharges, which is you have to nominate a friend who needs a special night out. It's not for you. It's for you to think of doing something for somebody that you love that needs something special. And then if I'm in a certain town, I will take a group of ladies to dinner, and I will buy them a fabulous dinner with drinks and give them a care package of all sorts of fun, wonderful things. And then we raise money for Rock Chick Rewards, which are charities that are randomly selected from lists of organizations that my readers want to get the money. So it just as long as they're a real charity, it doesn't matter what country they're in, just a bona fide charity. We give some, mostly it's to American organizations, but we do have one Australian charity that we give to. And then I raise money. I do a variety of things, selling swag, the cookbook, auctioning things off at the Rock Chick Rendezvous, to raise money for these charities, and we've raised nearly $150,000.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I want it to be a lot higher. So get ready for me to start really pushing Rock Chick Reward stuff.
It's probably been difficult during the pandemic because you haven't been able to connect with your readers in the way that you like to.
No, this has been a tough year for everybody. But yeah, you don't really know until it's gone. Mm-hmm. And I would have 2 or 3 or 5 events in a year, and not having any has not been fun. Live chats are great, but it's not the same.
No. As you've said, you've been writing for quite a while. As you look back now as a published author with so many books under your belt, what do you wish someone had told you about writing and publishing when you first started out with your first book?
Well, I wish they would have told me, be sure to have white space in your novels. Because some of my first novels are like very text dense, when I should have been like breaking paragraphs and dialogue apart. I was just so very certain that everything that these characters had to say had to happen all at one time. So that was like a little craft piece that I wish that I'd known in the beginning. But I think that also it would have been nice to just have a heads up before I read my first really bad review. Oh. Yeah, it was. I wasn't even thinking, and I just ran into a really bad review online, and I wasn't prepared for it. And it would have been nice to just kind of be. I don't think you ever have thick skin if you love what you do. It's just impossible not to have things dig under your skin. But I was paralyzed by my first bad review. I couldn't write for weeks, and I just really wasn't prepared. And you just want people to read it. You don't recognize that they're going to have an opinion on it, and they're entitled to that opinion. Not only entitled to it, but also entitled to share it. And with the internet, that can happen very widely. So just be a little prepared, just to have been a little bit prepared for that, because it stings.
So now, do you have someone else read your reviews before? And
yeah, I never read my reviews.
Yeah, that's
I mean, unless it's somebody that I know. Like, there are bloggers that I know enjoy my work and understand my voice, and they might not like everything, and those are ones that I don't tend to miss, because they have read my work, and if they say something that they don't like, that's constructive criticism to me, that I can read it and I can think, okay, they know I have to think about that, and I have to sit down, and so there are people that I trust are going to give me feedback. It might not be positive feedback, but it'll be feedback that will be useful to me. So I'll read those, but other than that, I don't. If it's an unknown, I don't go there.
Okay. You've mentioned social media. How does social media factor into your writing process or your authorial business model? And do you have a particular favorite social platform that you feel you're best connecting with your readers? So social media is the big topic.
I enjoy connecting with my readers on social media. I really do. I do them all. I even recently have picked up being on Twitter a lot more. And Twitter is not a really fun place to be, and you have to kind of structure your boundaries and not kind of go off into some of the seriously negative things that happen. But also, if you follow the right people, there's a lot of really heartwarming videos and stories, and funny videos and stories, and that's it. Also, to connect with some of my sister writers, who might not be on other platforms as much. You have to. I like to see what they're doing and what's happening with them. And there are quite a bit of romance novelists who are very active on Twitter. But mostly I'm Facebook, because I'm a horrible picture taker, and I want to be better with picture taking for Instagram. But mostly it's Facebook, and also because it's easy for me, because it's all computer. And I'm not good with my phone, but that's where I really connect with folks. So I don't tend to, it's very weird, because I don't do any personal social media at all. Just Kristen Ashley with my family and friends. I will connect with you face to face or on text or Zoom or something like that. I don't ever do regular social media. I just do my Kristen Ashley writer social media, and I spend a lot of time doing that.
In addition to writing, you've also been a reader all of your life, and you have a pretty eclectic list of favorite authors. Can you talk a little bit about your life as a reader, some favorites, maybe something you've read recently, or even several things you've read that you want to share?
Okay, this could go on forever. I really do read everything, and I love, and I got away from reading for an unfortunately long time when my writing career kind of took off, but I'm getting back into it, and it's hard to say, because romance novel, Kylie Scott, love Kylie Scott. J.R. Ward's Black Dagger Brotherhood is phenomenal. Some friends of mine told me I had to read Mariana Zapata, which I read, Luna and the Lie, and she's like apparently the queen of the slow burn romance. I've only read one of hers. I will read another one. The slow burn works. So I would completely suggest her, because unless you're significantly impatient, because you're going to be waiting a long time. But it's It's delicious.
Yeah.
And I just read Oprah Winfrey's What I Know for Sure, which is a little, a little collection. A girlfriend of mine gave it to me of vignettes of her from her column, which was phenomenal. You kind of get into a celebrity as they are to you, and it didn't really occur to me that in her job she's spoken with thousands and thousands of people. So not only is she a remarkably intelligent woman with her own experiences, she has met so many people with their own, and so her take on life was amazing. I mean, it just rocked me. It was I learned a lot from that book, and I'm reading Stamped from the beginning right now, which is a difficult go, but it's exceptionally well written, and it's way too bright for me. This is so much. I have to spend time with that book and go back and reread, because it's 400 years of history and then some, and it's a lot to kind of process. But I would absolutely recommend that as well.
Rumor has it you're also a Steve Barry fan.
Yes, I love Steve. I love a thriller. You will lose me. Like I was with, actually I was with Steve's wife, Liz, on a little vacation, and I had one of Steve's books. She was in the living room, and I was in my bedroom reading Steve's book. If you give me a thriller, and it's funny because thriller readers are known to kind of cherish their books, and it takes a long time to read them. I don't. Like Shutter Island, forget it. My sister gave that to me, and I was on the porch, for hours reading that book. So thrillers are big. Yeah. So Steve. Yeah, love Steve's books.
A couple of your books have been turned into a different medium, movies. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like? And do you want to give any potential hints about something that might be in the pipeline?
My novel, The Will, was made into a movie by Passionflix, and it's a really special book to me because the grandma in that book, who never really appears on the page because she passes away at the beginning, she's based on my grandmother, my Grammy, and she and so I sold the option to Passionflix, and I was really concerned about it because you don't really see a lot of good books
to movies,
good movies made into books. But from the instant I got the script, I was like, wow, they did it. I mean, they took a almost 600-page book and made it into a 2-hour movie. I mean, I was blown away. And then I was a producer with the project, so I helped to cast, and I worked with the director. And then eventually it got to the point where I really felt that Louise Alston, the director, the story had to become hers at some point. I had to give it over to her and let it become her vision, because she really had what I was saying down. And so and she knocked it out of the park. I mean, everybody that I really don't think I've heard anybody say anything bad about the movie, including people who never read the book, but also people that read the book. They were really pleased with how it went. So Passionflix owns Three Wishes, which is another one of my novels, which is also very close to my heart, and I can't wait for them to do it. It was such a great experience. I can't wait for them to make that into a movie. And it's kind of hard not to. Tosca Musk owns Passionflix. It's kind of hard not to email her like every day and say, "Where's that script? When are we going to get started on this? I'm ready."
What's next for you after your recent book? What can readers look forward to?
I keep telling myself that I'm going to go down to writing 3 or 4 books, releasing 3 or 4 books a year, and that's it. And it never happens that way. I have, after Dream Chaser comes out tomorrow, I have Still Standing, which is a MC series that I'm that I'm beginning that will be 3 different MCs, my Chaos MC, which has already had their own series, my Resurrection MC, and the new Aces High MC. And the series, you never know which MC you're going to be with, which motorcycle club you're going to be with. So that is kicking off in February of next year. Right after that, I have my novella with 1001 Dark Nights, Wild Wind is coming out in March. And then the 3rd Dream Team novel is coming out in May. And then I've got a special project that I'm doing with a number of other romance novelists that I'll be announcing a little bit later. That's for the Rock Chick Nation. That'll come out this summer. And then I have the 2nd book in the River Rain series coming out in September, and then the next book in the Dream Team series coming out in December. So it's going to be a very heavy year for me again.
Never sleep, do you? You just write.
Yeah. Well, I have to sleep because I make up my stories when I'm going to sleep and when I'm waking up. So that's the way I get around that.
I think we do have some questions from some of your fans, so we'll go ahead and bring those in now.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. Can you hear me, Kristen?
I can.
Okay, great. Let's see. I think her name is, I'm going to blow this, Ritika. Says, which rock chick or dream man protagonist or dream maker do you relate to the most?
That it's easier to say who I don't relate to because I give so much of myself to my characters. Roxy from Rock Chick Redemption is very like me. Ava from Rock Chick Revenge is also very like me. And Ava lived in my row house in Denver. There's a lot of me in Jet. There's a ridiculous amount of me in Indy. So I really mostly it's Allie who's the only badass of all of them, who's not like me because I'm not like that. I'm not the gung-ho person that's going to get in a car chase. And I'm not like Evie from Dreammaker. She's brilliant. She's she's an engineer and she is a math genius, and I'm not like that at all.
Okay, let's see. Karina asks, are you planning on doing a book for Smithys' story?
With Smithys romance, I hadn't. I think this is the first time anybody's ever asked for Smithys romance, but I never say never. So I have in the past. I said I'd never write Daisy's story, and I've written Daisy's story, and I said I'd never write Charlene's story, and I wrote her story. So right now, anything can happen.
Okay, let's see. There's a question about, the actual question reads, how far in advance are books completed before release? And I guess as a corollary to that, how long does it take you to complete a manuscript usually?
Well, I just finished Augie and Pepper's story, which is Dream Keeper, which will be out next December. So that's a traditionally published book. That's kind of what they need, bare minimum, to turn the book around and release it. So they need about a year. For me, if all the stars align, and all of my team, who they don't work for me, they're contract workers, so they have other clients, can fit me in, I can write a book and then turn it around. So I can write a book anywhere between, it used to be 2 to 4 weeks I could write a book, but now, I'm living life and actually, not spending every second of every day writing. Now it takes more like 6 to 8 weeks for me to write a manuscript, and then I need at least two or 3 months to be able to turn around and release it. And I try to give it more time because I want my Audible books to be released at the same time as my ebook/print books, and you need to give them time to produce an audiobook. They need at least 3 months. So So I'm kind of ahead, like all of those books I talked about coming out next year, only one of them is not written. All the rest of them are written and ready to roll.
What's your average writing day like? How many hours? Do you have a word count that you shoot for?
No, I go until it starts to not sound good. I go until, what I'm writing I think is rubbish. And that's when I know that my brain is getting tired. And before I start to get disheartened, I'll get up and leave it. My cat also knows when it's time for me to quit writing, and she comes and tells me to stop it and leave my office. But by the time I get back to the words in the morning with my mind fresh, I'll read them and I'll be like, oh, okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I thought I was going off on one and it's no good. So I usually come in and do social media and email, and then I try to shut everything out and then write until I can't write anymore. And that's normally from like 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning to 5, 6, 7, 8 at night.
Okay.
Depending on what kind of role I'm on.
How do you keep from getting burnt out?
I remember my brother not too long ago. He was terrified that I would get writer's block, that I would run out of stories to tell. And I don't know what it is about my mind, but I can't stop telling stories. I actually got to the point where I had to spend significant amounts of time, even if I'm writing a book, stop writing it, to write an entire plot, everything that has come to me about another book, and start to file them away, because I didn't want to, they come to me so fast, stories for books, ideas for books, and characters, and that I have to write everything, and these documents can be like 25 pages long, and then I'll just file it, and then in hopes that I can go back and tell that story eventually. So knock on wood, that never ends. It just keeps, I'll see a television show, or I'll hear a song, or I'm obsessed right now about writing a story about a woman that owns food trucks. I'll see a food truck and I'll think, okay, that's a great business with creativity that takes all of this kind of, that would be such a cool thing to give a heroine, a food truck business. Anyway, and so then it just kind of goes crazy from there.
So you always have the what if question going.
What do you mean? What if?
Well, what could I do with this situation? What if I had a food truck, series? What if that kind of thing?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, so there's a question here about Cindy writes. She says, "I love the cookbook. Will you have signed copies available?"
Well, I did have. I loved this. This was awesome, but it was unfortunate for people that missed out. I had signed copies on my website, and they sold out within days. They're gone. So, and then we closed the website for the holidays. But yeah, I mean, we had hardcover copies, and the hardcover copies were sold out in a day. So yeah, that's why I never announced it was available, because I didn't think I was going to have enough. There's no reason to announce it and then everybody gets to the website and it's sold out. So I'm sorry, and they will be when we open the store back up. There will be cookbooks available, signed. Sorry.
You snooze, you lose.
Problem to have.
Here's a random one. Would you ever set a book or series in Australia?
Yes, I love Australia. I've been to Australia several times, and I love Australia. I love Australia. Yes, I'd consider doing that. I was just about to tell a very long story that would probably be boring, but ended up fighting with my boyfriend in the Hunter Valley. and he was walking down the street, leaving me with the rental car. But my story would be better than that one.
Do you have any advice? I'm sure we have some aspiring writers who are watching. Do you have any advice for people on just how to break through the blocks that they might have, and have the courage to finish something, and just some standard writing tips?
I do. Actually, I have had some issues with writing for the first time ever. Not with ideas, just with kind of feeling that that was working, or my words were good, that they went together. And then I was telling a story that people would want to read during this pandemic. And I think that it just hasn't helped. It's a mental thing, that everybody has their own way of it affecting them. And with me, it affected my writing. And I really, there was a time this year when I was really struggling with getting my words on the page. And I eventually and I know it sounds silly, but I just kept writing. And even if I wrote, because I'm unusual in the sense that like a 2,000 word day is a very slow day for me. I usually write between 5 and 20,000 words a day. I'm a very fast writer. When it's coming, it's coming. And if I would write 100 words, that was a successful day. I just switched my mindset into, if I wrote 50 words, it was a successful day. I didn't give up on that day, and I didn't give up on that book, and I didn't give up on my words. And I just had to retrain myself as to what was expected, and just be kind to myself. And it doesn't really need a pandemic for you to learn to be kind to yourself. I mean, this is like birthing a child. And you wouldn't just push out a baby and then go on with your life, So give yourself a break, especially when you get blocked, and just don't give up. Even if it's 5 words, or if you spend a day editing the words that you've already gotten down. So that's how I really despaired. I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to shut off the faucet of words, this COVID situation. And I eventually found my footing that way.
Okay, let's see. Aaron asks, would you consider returning to the world of Complicated?
Complicated is a standalone book that I published. It was an Audible exclusive at first, and yes, I would. I think that I get a lot of people asking for books from Glossop, Nebraska. So yeah, I would do that. I don't know how I would do it. I think Shaw, the hero's son, is going to go off and have his own life in the military. But I think so. There wasn't a lot of characters that I introduced, but also it was a murder mystery, and it was the first murder they'd had in that town in 50 years. And I'd hate for him, and the hero was the sheriff, and I'd hate for him all of a sudden to be having to deal with all these murders. So I have to find some new, exciting suspense angle that isn't bodies piling up in Glossop. but yeah, I get a lot of people that love that book and want to go back and see what's going on in Glossop, and so I would definitely consider that.
We've had a number of people asking or curious about Judith McNaught. Can you kind of articulate why she's your favorite, and maybe do you have a recommendation for people who've not read her books?
This is the hardest thing. The recommendation is the hardest thing because I love all her books. But I'm going to say, if you're a romance reader and you like a redemption story, A Kingdom of Dreams, run to your local bookstore, or I think they're on ebook now. And I always loved Once and Always. and Almost Heaven. And those are all historicals, and they're really, really good. But her contemporaries are good too. And I think it's been so long. The heroine her heroines are plucky in ways that didn't seem forced plucky. They had to like Jenny in A Kingdom of Dreams. Oh, I could go on about this forever. Elizabeth in Almost Heaven, she is abandoned by her brother, and she's taking care of this estate and all the people on the estate, and she haggles with the people in the marketplace, and she just gets on with it. And I love that about her heroines, is that they're beautiful and all of those things, but they're also facing real life situations, and they do it in a really cool manner where they're not fainting on couches. They're really strong women, and I love that about them, and I love that that's what the heroes loved about them too. Not that most romance novels are like this. I mean, the woman is in some kind of peril and she finds her way through. But I just love the way that Judith McNaught could make these very feminine women. They all have very strong spines, and I definitely stole that. I stole that from my books too, from Judith McNaught. And humor was huge. I mean, she had a lot of moments where it was just like a shot to the heart, and then you'd turn the page and you'd be laughing out loud. And I really like that. You can't. You just have constantly, bogged down with all this pathos and, all this emotion without some levity. And she had great moments of humor in her book. And so those were my three things: just to have a really, really strong heroine that people can relate to, really very fleshed out secondary characters, and humor. Put humor in your books. Those were the things I stole from her.
So as kind of a final thought, not really a question, but a number of readers are just saying, thank you so much for giving us, everybody, a nice escape this year from reality, and that we've all been facing together. And it's just a lot of people saying how much they love your work and just thank you.
Well, that's one of the things that when you're trying to be published and you just want somebody to read your books, you don't realize how much your books will come to mean to people, and how much that will mean to you in return. And so it's absolutely my honor that, especially in a year as really unpredictable and difficult as this one has been, once in a millennium, feels like, that people went to my worlds for a safe place is huge. And thank you.
I think that's a good point for us to wrap up. Thank you, Kristen, for joining us today. And thank you for tuning in. And don't forget, we do have signed copies of Kristen's new book at the Poison Pen. Tune in next time for another author event.